Hey guys, Nicky here. So we are back once again, ready to do our second mock draft here. Right now it is the 17th. I would do there's still one more game coming up, as you can see on the ad up here. The Cardinals Rams game has not happened yet. So the playoff rankings aren't quite necessarily accurate to the second. I currently have the who do I have? Oh, I had the Cardinals actually losing in the wild card round, although I had them trading their pick later, but that's a future thing. Don't worry about that. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But for right now, the draft order is accurate because I have somehow picked all 5 of the wild card games that have happened so far correctly, at least in my mock draft. I don't know if I correlated that to the video, but man. Anyway, so we're doing a mock draft today, and this time we're doing 2 rounds, first and second. I have adjusted the picks on the left side of the screen. I've nearly pointed at it with my finger like a smart person, because that's going to come through on the video feed. But yes, I have the picks basically all set up, except for picks that involve players, because those are kind of impossible to incorporate into the trade thing on this website. But I will get to those when I get to those. But as of now, this draft order is basically right, except for picks that have moved from player trades that have not happened yet, but will. Stay tuned. Okay, so we start off at the number 1 overall pick. Right now, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I've seen a few mock drafts taking Evan Neal at the number 1 overall pick, and I could see it. He is a very good player, but I just don't think it's the biggest need for the Jaguars right now. Like, if you're drafting a tackle number 1 overall, I feel like that should be because you need a starting left tackle day 1, and I don't think the Jaguars are quite in that position. I think that they are. I think that they need some help along the offensive line, but I think at least they have their left tackle sort of sorted out right now with Cam Robinson, and honestly, even Andrew Norwell at left guard is pretty darn good at the moment. So I don't think that they're really. I don't think they go tackle here. I think that, given the choice between the two, I think that their need at pass rusher is way more desperate at the moment. So I think that they go pass rusher here, and they take Aiden Hutchinson, number 1 overall. I think it just makes the most sense. Like, he's got a super high floor, and he has the potential to be a multiple-time All-Pro. And when you're rebuilding your franchise, that's really the best you could ask for. Like, you don't want to go for a guy who has boom or bust potential like I feel like Kayvon Thibodeau has. You want a guy who is going to be relatively safe, who can still produce at that big level. And I think Aiden Hutchinson fits that profile more than Thibodeau. But Thibodeau is no slouch either, and I think he ends up going number 2 to the Detroit Lions. I do think that they're going to be a little bit sad that they didn't that they aren't going to be able to get their hometown guy, but I feel like that's kind of just a narrative that like mock drafters are making. Like, I think that if they take Kayvon Thibodeau, they're going to be very happy with that. Like, he is an amazing run stuffer as well as an amazing pass rusher. He can get to the quarterback, and basically he can get to whoever is holding the ball and make them have a bad day. So I think that this makes a ton of sense. Excuse me. I'm going to be doing 64 picks here, so I'm going to be drying out my throat like crazy, so I might have to stop for drinks every so often. All right, so 3rd overall. Now, normally this is with the Texans have this selection, but not here. In this scenario, I would have the Giants move up 2 spots and trade with the Texans for the number 3 overall pick. The actual trade would include, let's see if it here. Okay, ignore this, because this is just what I needed to make this pick work. But yes, actually, let's just go ahead and close it, and I'll just say it. The Giants would receive pick number 3 and 80. whereas the Texans receive pick number 5 and 36. So since this is a 2-round draft, we won't be getting into that 80 pick, but we will be talking about what the Texans will be doing with their new pick at 36. But we'll get to that later. But for right now, the reason they trade up for that spot is to get Evan Neal. Like, they need a pass, or they need people who can protect Daniel Jones, because the fact that this offense just straight up died once Daniel Jones went down should tell you that they need him to stay upright at all costs. Like, they need to surround Daniel Jones with good pass blockers and people who and even failing that, people who can at least clear run lanes for Saquon Barkley. Like, and I think Evan Neal does the best job at doing that. He can either start right away or at left tackle, or if they want to wait for a second and maybe start him at right tackle. Either way, basically Nate Solder can go off into retirement, as he should have basically 3 years ago, and him and Andrew Thomas, who is all right at the moment, like, they can be your starting tackles in whatever configuration you want them, but that works for me right now. So next up at number 4, we have the Jets, and I see them going corner. They've been needing some help in the secondary. They're one of the worst teams in pulling down interceptions in the league, and Derek Stingley Jr. fixes that problem easily. He also has kind of boomer bust potential, but if he works out the way that people are hoping, he could be Darrelle Revis 2.0. He could be that shutdown, lockdown, my side of the field is good corner that just takes over games. Now, he has been known to get beat sometimes, but I think Stingley has a lot of the tools that you need to succeed at this level. Texans at number 5. This is the first rounder that they got from the trade down, and I think the Texans use this on the best player available, which is Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame. He's one of those guys who could just be that center fielder, the one who can move around everywhere, be wherever you need him to be, whether he's making plays deep downfield or right up at the line of scrimmage or on either side of the field. He has the speed and awareness to basically be wherever you need him to be. Now, the 6th pick currently belongs to the Carolina Panthers, but this is part of the first of many big trades that I think will be happening in this offseason that's going to majorly affect the first and second round of this draft. This is going to be the landing spot of Deshaun Watson. I think that Watson will end up here. The trade will be the Panthers receive Watson, and the Texans receive this year's first and next year's first and second from the Panthers. Now, we have heard rumors that they were talking about like 3 first-round picks was the asking price, and I think that's just a little bit too much. Like, at that point, you're really just trying to set the bar high and hope that somebody bites. And I think that this is a much more reasonable 2 firsts and a future second. I think that works, and I think that the Texans end up getting the 6th overall pick as well, and they use that to improve their pass rush and go George Karlaftis. Now, the temptation here might be to go quarterback, but I don't think that that's a good idea, because I think Davis Mills did a very good job in that last month of the season of establishing himself as at least somebody who should be competing for the starting job next year. Like, he did good enough that you don't need to use a top 6 pick in order to replace him. So maybe they look to fix that in the 2nd round, but for now, I think that the Texans would very much like to improve their pass rush. It was among the worst in the league, and this will help there. So, Karlaftis going to the Texans, not the Panthers. Seven up is the Giants again, and in my first mock draft, I had I had the Giants double dip on the offensive line, and I'm going to do that again here. Although last time I did that with Ekwonu as the guard, this time around we're going to go Kenyon Green. Like, he's just been really impressing me. I've been watching a lot of his tape, and he's just a mean son of a bitch. Like, he just get on the ground, defender, and like. I think that this would go a long way. Like, you get the best tackle prospect in the draft, and you get the best guard prospect in the draft. You get those two. Maybe pick up somebody else in free agency. Commit to Daniel Jones, because when Daniel Jones was on this team and when he was actually playing, he showed a lot of glimpses that he could actually be a good starting quarterback. Like, maybe not as good as you might hope, but he's at least somebody who can take a team around him that's good and take them places. And, like, I think the Giants just need to continue to build pieces around Daniel Jones, because, like, they've already got a couple pieces in the secondary. They can use some more picks on the secondary. Like, you know, they got Azeez Ojulari last year. He was pretty good. But this year should be all about giving Daniel Jones the best possible chance to succeed. Because if he doesn't do it this year, then you're really going to start to get a lot of questions being asked. Like, is Daniel Jones the guy? And I think he still can be, but this is probably the last year that people like me will be giving him the benefit of the doubt. All right, next up at 8 is the Atlanta Falcons. And this is one, the need is clear. Like last time around, I think I went defensive line, which was close to solving the problem, but they need is pass rushers, like really bad. They were dead last in the league in pass rush, and not just that, it was not close. I think they had 18 sacks on the season, and the next closest had 29. Like, that feels like a typo. But no, the Falcons just forgot how to pass rush. So I think they go with a pass rusher here, David Ajabo from Michigan. Like, I have seen a lot of footage on Ajabo, and he is just so shifty. Like, not only can he, like, use his big arms to just get people out of the way, but he can also, like, maneuver around people and just, like, get by them without hardly any contact. Like, he's a very slippery pass rusher, which is a trait I don't normally hear in pass rushers, but I feel like it would really help out. That would be really good for this. All right, 9 is the Broncos. Is this where Matt Corral falls to? No, because the Broncos have their starting quarterback of the future, and his name is Aaron Rodgers. I think that this is the year they finally pull the trigger on a trade for Aaron Rodgers, and I think it's because there have been rumors circulating that Aaron Rodgers might boycott the Super Bowl if the league doesn't loosen its COVID things. And, like, I think that he would actually go and do it. Like, maybe this is just me not giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like he would actually try and pull this. And this would end up costing the Packers in the Super Bowl, and at that point, I think the Packers are finally just like, you know what? We have done a lot, and I mean a lot, to placate you, and you've just gone and done this, so we're done. We're done trying to kiss your ass. We're going to trade you off. And honestly, they trade him away for way under market value. They only end up getting this pick right here, number 9 overall, and a 2023 third. They only get a first and a third for Aaron Rodgers, who's still got a few years left in his prime. That's a little bit surprising. So what do the Packers do now that they have the 9th overall pick? I think they go offensive line, and I think they specifically go guard. I know that's a bit weird, but you got to think that now they are in the Jordan Love era. All right, it is now his team. So they need to do whatever they can in order to make sure that that Jordan Love is given the best possible scenario in order to succeed. And I think the first step in that is to fill out his offensive line. Because when they're at full strength, especially if they pick up Ekwonu, I think this offensive line would be stellar. You have David Bakhtiari, John Runyon Jr., Elgin Jenkins, I think it is. Ekwonu at guard. I know it says he's a tackle here, but he really fits better at guard. Anyway, Ekwonu at guard, and then Billy Turner at right tackle. That is a complete offensive line right there, and not many teams can say they have that. So I think that if they do that, then the Packers are going to be in incredible position to let Jordan Love at least do his best in Green Bay. Do I think that he will adequately follow up one of the greatest of all time? Probably not, but I think it's worth. They've already invested the first round pick in him. They've got to at least give him a real shot to succeed in Green Bay. So I think they give him a little bit of more pass help. Next up at 10 is the New York Jets. And this is where I have the first receiver going off the board, and it's Chris Olave. Now, I struggled on this one because for a while there, I was thinking Andrew Booth Jr. Pair Derek Stingley Jr. up with Andrew Booth Jr., the two best corners in this draft, on the same team. You're basically starting your own Legion of Boom at that point. But eventually I decided that the better option would be to give Zach Wilson a little extra help, because he has had his receiving core is good. You got, when they're all healthy, you got Jamison Crowder, you got Corey Davis, Elijah Morris coming along strong. Braxton Berrios made the Pro Bowl as a kick returner, but he was also showing really good signs as a receiver. I think Olave is that guy who can be he could be the guy who brings it all together. He can be that guy who opens up the defense and makes things easier for everyone else around him. So I think Olave makes a ton of sense here. And I think he would make an already improving Jets offense that much better. Next is 11, and this is finally where somebody takes a goddamn quarterback, and Matt Corral comes off the board at number 11. Now, this has just been through a combination of, some teams have bigger needs, other teams traded for a quarterback. People know that this isn't going to be an amazing draft class, so instead they have focused more on veteran quarterbacks that are available on the free agent or in the free agent and the trade market, and trying to improve their team that way. So I think Matt Corral is the guy right here, and I think that he falls to a great position, because if this team still has Ryan Fitzpatrick as their backup quarterback, he can learn from Fitzpatrick. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league. He can learn so much from him, and in turn help a Washington offense that has a lot of pieces. You got Antonio Gibson, you got Terry McLaurin. You've got bits and pieces here and there, but it felt like the team was held back by their quarterback for a lot of the season. And I do think that they would also probably pick up another wide receiver in the later rounds, maybe not in the second, but past that. But I think that Matt Corral falling to Washington at 11, I think that makes a ton of sense. So there you go. Next up is number 12 overall, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. And this is where Andrew Booth Jr. finally goes off the board. This one is another one that feels very, very fortunate for the team that lands him, because the Vikings gave up the 5th most passing yards in the league last year, and they actually did manage to pull down a good number of of interceptions, but it was largely with their linebackers and safeties. Their corners just weren't doing what they needed. So I think Andrew Booth Jr., who a lot of people are saying is the best cornerback prospect in this draft, maybe even the best secondary member of this draft. Like, there are people who might take him top 5. But I think Booth Jr. going to the Vikings at number 12, I think that works out for everyone involved. Next is 13. This is the Miami Dolphins now. Now, originally this was the Cleveland Browns, but the Browns will trade down in this scenario and pick up some future picks. Excuse me. And the Dolphins are trading up so that they can get Charles Cross. So Tua Tagovailoa got absolutely murdered by his offensive line this season. It was hard to watch. And they didn't give up a ton of sacks, but they gave up a ton of pressures. And luckily, the Dolphins offense has been able to adapt to having literally no offensive line and basically just having to adapt a short to intermediate passing game that almost incentivizes him running for his goddamn life. But I think we can at least start to try and fix that by drafting an offensive tackle here. Show the team that they are actually willing to commit to try and make Tua better instead of just making him a trade piece. So I think that would go quite a long way. And I think that Charles Cross here is probably the last of the really, really elite tackle prospects, which is going to make things particularly awkward for the next pick. But we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Charles Cross, like, he's a guy who could probably start immediately on this offensive line at left. Well, actually, no, he might have to start at right tackle because Tua is a lefty. So if you're getting a blindside blocker, he would be starting at the right tackle. So that's interesting. So that could be something to watch out for. But I think the Ravens are next up, and they were also looking at an offensive lineman, specifically a tackle. And like I think they still end up going here. And they ended up going with Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa. He's still a very good tackle prospect. He dominated the FCS division. The problem with the Ravens, though, is that a lot of their really big problems, they're going to be fixing those by bringing back people from injury. They're bringing back Marlon Humphreys, Marcus Peters, like a bunch of their that wrecked secondary is going to be coming back. So you don't really need to go there. So instead, I think that they try to make sure that Lamar Jackson doesn't have to worry as much in the pocket because they have Alejandro Villanueva right now, and he's not getting any younger. All right, he's like late 30s right now, so they really need to think about moving on from him. I was thinking Devin Lloyd at first for this position, but then I remembered the Ravens have gone linebacker in the draft in the first round the last 2 seasons with Patrick Queen and Odafe Owe. So probably don't need to do that. So I think that this is the way to go. Improve their offensive line, make life easier for Lamar Jackson, and just try to get younger at that position. Because right now, a lot of their big pieces along their offensive line, they're getting older and they're beat up. So getting younger there would definitely help. Next up, we have the first of 3 Eagles picks at 15, 16, and 19. Originally I thought it was 14, 15. I thought it was something else, but I think I was wrong. But anyway, 15, 16, and 19 is where the Eagles are going to be selecting. They could do a lot in that range. And I think they start out by going corner. Doesn't really matter which order you do these first 2 picks, but I would have one of them be a corner, specifically Kaiir Elam out of Florida. Like, mostly because they already have big play Darius Slay. One of the best pass coverage corners in the league. You pair him up with Kyer Elam, who's very good at coverage himself, but he's also an elite run stopper. Like, he can keep plays from breaking off into big ones, and like, I think that would be something that the Eagles would be very high on. So I think they go Kyer Elam here, and then with their second pick, I think they go Jermaine Johnson, because they really need more than anything else to address their pass rush. Like, honestly, I think they might be a contender to trade up a little and maybe try and make a play for one of the top guys. You know, either they might not have enough to get Hutchinson. Like, they might not have enough to go all the way up to number 1, but they might have enough to get up to like 5 and get Karlaftis or Ajabo or something like that. But I think they end up going with Jermaine Johnson here. Like, I believe I said earlier that the Falcons had 18 sacks on the season. Well, the Eagles were the next closest at 29, so they need a lot of help on their pass rush, and I think Jermaine Johnson will help them in that regard. All right, halfway through the first. We're doing good. All right, so next up is 17. And this is, I think, where DeMarvin Leal comes off the board. He's another guy who I've seen people take him in the top 10, but I just don't think the defensive tackle is as big of a need as it is for some other places. So I think that they go DeMarvin Leal here and use him to replace an aging Linville Joseph. Or, and this is another thing with Leal, he's actually versatile enough that he could possibly play a 3-4 defensive end. And I believe the Chargers do play 3-4. So he could line up alongside Joey Bosa and help him get to the quarterback. So I think Leal, like, he works for wherever the Chargers will end up putting him. Next is 18 as the Saints, except it is not, because this is another big trade. Now, the Saints are in the market for a quarterback, and I think they end up trading for Russell Wilson. They end up trading away a 2022 first and second and a 2023 first and third. So they end up giving away a lot, but I think they find themselves a quarterback who is still in the relative range of his prime, getting a fresh start. Getting back Michael Thomas is going to be wonderful. Like, I think that if you give this team an actual quarterback, like, they can go quite a ways, because they went quite a ways this year without a quarterback. They had Jameis for a little while, and the Saints were actually pretty good with Jameis, although I think he might end up leaving in free agency. But because he actually, like, people recognize that, yes, he did do good, so he could end up signing somewhere else. But, like, for the last half of the season, they were starting, like, Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill, Ian Book. They were at one point talking about bringing in the boat, Blake Bortles. So that should tell you just how sketchy things had gotten. So I think that I think it's time for them to actually go out and find themselves a quarterback. And I think that trading for one right here would be the way to go. Now, what does Seattle do? Because this would mean that the quarterback that they have right now is Geno Smith, and he just did 95 miles an hour while I think drunk. So probably not him. They could go quarterback here, but I honestly think that the quarterbacks that they'll find in the second round when they come up again, I think that those guys will be just as good as whatever they find in the at this range right here. So I think that they can instead worry about, like, their absolutely porous defense that has just been, like, giving up big plays in chunks, and I think they go Sauce Gardner here. Like, like they just need a big step at corner. Like they need a lot of help over there. And oh god, I'm getting stuffy. I think that Gardner would really go a long way to helping that. So next up at 19 is the third of the Eagles' firsts, and here I think they go receiver here, and I think they take Jamison Williams. Now I know he's coming off of a torn ACL, and I get that, but Williams is like, I think the Eagles in this situation would be a great landing spot for him, because at this point, like, if Williams doesn't work out because of that ACL injury, well, then you still got 2 other first-round picks to pick up the slack in order to justify this as a good draft. So I think that Williams lands here. Like, he's not their biggest priority out of the draft, but he's somebody who definitely could help out a whole bunch. And I think that he works as the number 2 receiver behind Devontae Smith, or maybe even being a 1A 1B kind of deal, like Evans and Godwin in Tampa. Like, plus those 2 along with Jalen Hurts all went to Bama, so that's kind of a cool little connection. But yes, I think that this would be a very, very smart pickup for them. They need an extra playmaker, because right now, Jalen Reagor is not the guy. He is very clearly not the guy. And at the moment, their only 2 like super good pass catching options is Smith and Dallas Goedert. So I think that they need to expand a little bit and try to give Jalen Hurts a little bit more to work with. Because once you do that, like, then we'll get to see exactly what this Eagles offense looks like, and whether or not Jalen Hurts is the guy. Because I think he is. There's a lot of people who don't like Jalen Hurts. I think that he can be a very strong quarterback in this league. But at the moment, there's still a year or 2 away, and it's still a few players away from really being as good as they need to be. 20 is the Steelers, and the Steelers could go quarterback. They really could. Kenny Pickett's right there, but I don't think they do, because I think they trade for another quarterback. Ding, 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 ding. But not with this pick. We will get to this one a little bit later with their 2nd round pick. Stay tuned. So I think the Steelers here instead try and fix their absolutely abhorrent offensive line. It is straight trash home dog. And I think they do that by drafting Darian Kinnard. This might be a little bit of a reach, but like, I think he's the best tackle still available. Like, and I think that he has the size, he has the power. He was going up against a really strong competition at Kentucky, and he more than held his own against strong pass rushers. I think Kinnard would be a great spot for the Steelers, because like their offensive line was just terrible, and one of the reasons why the offensive line isn't being brought up as much as it is because Ben Roethlisberger was basically getting by on short passes that didn't take a ton of time to develop. So he didn't end up taking that much damage in the pocket. So I think Darian Kinnard will go a long way to like helping whoever is the starting quarterback for the Steelers next year, and to help them become a better team. 21 is next, and it is the Patriots. Now, after the shellackings that this Patriots team has received from at the hands of the Bills, one might say they might need to go defense. But I would agree with that, but like, there is a player right here at the top of the board who has just been sliding down, just waiting to be picked. And I think the Patriots do just that. Because their receiving core right now is just not what you need it to be. It's missing a lot. And what it's missing the most is a classic staple of the Belichick offense, a super duper slot receiver. And I think that is Garrett Wilson. Like, he could fit into that Welker, Amendola, Edelman type of role where he just gets first downs at will, which would be a very, very big help for a rookie quarterback like Mac Jones. So, like, they could go Daxton Hill, they could go Devin Lloyd. There's a bunch of defensive players who, yes, would be great helps. You know, Nakobe Dean, Trent McDuffie. You know, there's quite a few people in that range, but man, you just can't let Garrett Wilson keep sliding like that, especially when he fits into a Belichick archetype so well that they don't have at the moment. Like, they don't have a true legit number one receiver right now. And I think people noticed that whenever they did their big free agency splurge last year and just like picked up a bunch of players, but then you looked at the roster and it was just like, okay, but who is leading the team in receiving yards out of this? Is it going to be Hunter Henry? So yeah, I think that this team looks a lot better at this point with Garrett Wilson as the, like, and it might be a little bit weird drafting using a first round pick on a slot receiver, but like, it's not like it's a big reach or anything. Like, Garrett Wilson's probably like one of the top 3 quarterbacks or wide receivers in this draft class. He could be the best one in some people's minds. But I just think that his skill set fits more into that archetype, and I think that teams would be coveting big play receivers a little bit more, whereas Belichick, he doesn't mind doing that 10 yards at a time. Secure catching kind of receiver. So that's why I think Garrett Wilson falls here. 22 is next, and I have them going corner as well, and that corner is Roger Mccreery. Like, it wouldn't be a Raiders draft if they didn't like pick somebody that they could have gotten at a much later time. But yeah, in all seriousness, Roger Mccreery, like, I think that he is a little bit underrated on this board. I think that he could be much better, especially considering that the Raiders were dead last in the league in interceptions. So despite making the playoffs, this Raiders team had a bunch of problems. So yeah, I feel very comfortable with them taking McCreery here. He could be a guy who just flips possession for them. Like he didn't grab a ton of interceptions at Auburn, but they were timely ones. They were ones that like made a big difference in those games. And I feel like Roger Mccreery going to the Raiders would really help them in a way that hasn't really been there in the Raiders secondary. Okay, so next up is the Titans at 23. And this is going to be weird because originally this pick belongs to the Cardinals. Like you might have noticed, because it's just like, how can the Titans have a pick in this as a wild card loser range when they weren't in the wild card round? Well, that's because they traded up with Arizona. The Titans move up from 27 to 23, pick up the Cardinals end up picking up the Titans' late third round pick in the process. And in this scenario, I have them going with Tyler Linderbaum. This is a little bit odd. But there are teams right ahead of Tennessee, that were originally ahead of Tennessee at 27. Teams like Cleveland, teams like Buffalo, or teams like Dallas, who would be in the market for a center. And I think that Linderbaum is another one that's just been kind of falling down the board. I've seen this dude go as high as like top 5, which is insane for a center. But I think that Linderbaum going here, like, you have him as like the road grader for Derrick Henry runs up the middle, like just clearing out space, being that lead blocker. Like, it just fits with what the Titans are needing right now. Like, the Titans don't need a ton of help in a lot of places. They are a fairly complete team. There's just pieces here and there that could definitely stand to improve, and I think that finding a better center for them would go a long way. And finally, among the wild card losers is the Dallas Cowboys. And I think at this spot, they go Jordan Davis out of Georgia. Like, big dude. He can patch up the Cowboys' somewhat suspect run defense. Like, they gave up the 3rd most 20-yard rushes in the league and the 8th most rushing yards. And for a team that is otherwise fairly complete, that's a pretty glaring need. So I think that the Cowboys end up going with a big body dude who could fill up the middle and help Micah Parsons wreak even more havoc. So that works for me. Next is the Browns. They got this spot from trading down with the Dolphins, picking up the 50th overall pick as well in the draft. And I believe that with this spot, they actually go edge rusher. Because they've already got a pretty strong defensive line. But, like, if you were to add Travon Walker to it, you got Myles Garrett on one side. Clowney, I think, is on the last year of a contract, so he might be gone. I know Malik McDowell is on the last year of his deal, and he's resurrected his career in a nice way, but he might also be gone. Like, this is a place where I could see quite a few things happening. This might also be a spot for a wide receiver. I have heard a couple people say that they want the Browns to go receiver in the first round to make up for the loss of OBJ and address how Jarvis Landry might be on the trade block. But I think that the smarter play right now is to make a already strong pass rush even better and go Travon Walker with the Browns first. Now, next is the Buffalo Bills, except another trade, and not for a quarterback this time, as you might have guessed, because you're just like, okay, why are the Bills trading for a quarterback? They aren't. They're trading for Calvin Ridley. I think that the Bills, they desperately need another great pass catcher. I almost said pass rusher. They desperately need another great pass catcher. Like, another playmaker to help out this Buffalo offense. Because right now, like, Josh Allen is doing so much of the work. He's going to get himself hurt. And, like, Dawson Knox is really starting to come alive in the last couple of months of the regular season and in the playoffs. But picking up a top-end wide receiver, I think, will do quite a bit for this team. So, I think the Bills trade out, almost exact 1-for-1. I think that the Bills will also get a 4th-rounder later. But basically, this is just straight up Calvin Ridley for a 1st-rounder. And with that 1st-rounder, the Atlanta Falcons basically end up replacing him with Treylon Burks. So, right now, I think that the Falcons end up retaining Cordero Patterson and end up drafting Treylon Burks, who is a big big receiver. 6'3", 225, hands that are just gigantic. Like, this dude, like, he is one of those guys who could be the big play, go up and get it, like, winning contested catches kind of deal. He could be that guy for him. So, and a guy like that, I think, could really help extend Matt Ryan's career by a few years. And that is something that they're going to be greatly fans of in Atlanta. So Atlanta goes Treylon Burks. Ooh. Okay. Didn't mean to do that. Next is the Cardinals. And, Cardinals, their pass rushing is really good, but I think that they need to find a younger guy who can be the eventual heir apparent to J.J. Watt. Because Watt is obviously in the twilight of his career. You know, he's starting to slow down a little bit. But I think that he still has enough to offer, especially from a mentoring perspective. So I think that this would be a smart play to draft Kingsley Enagbare. Enagbare. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I think that this is a guy who has the key with him is versatility. All right. He can be an outside linebacker. He could be a 3-4 end. He can basically be whatever you need him to be in the front seven. So I think that this is a pick where the Cardinals don't necessarily need him right away, but he can learn from guys like J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, I think Marcus Golden, if I'm not mistaken, and basically just continue to get better on this Cardinals team. Like, learn from some of the best and then eventually move into those positions. All right. Next up is the Buccaneers. And I think that the play here is to go corner because at some point in the season, the Buccaneers were desperate enough at cornerback to give Richard Sherman a contract. That should tell you all you need to know about this Tampa Bay team. They need some help in the secondary, and instead of going out and getting more old dudes to help with it, I think that the play here would be to go Trent McDuffie. Like, he's not a big size dude, but he's a big brain player. Like, he knows exactly where to be, exactly when the ball is released from the quarterback's hands, and can be in position to really help this team get to that next level. Or get back to that next level, rather. All right. The Bengals at 29. So what this is implying is that the Bengals make it all the way to the AFC Championship game before ultimately losing to the Chiefs. Best timeline. Everything else is shit, but this is best timeline. All right. And with the 29th pick, I think that the Bengals go linebacker, specifically inside linebacker. And they take the first inside linebacker on the board, Devin Lloyd. There are plays that I have watched this man do that would qualify him to be an actual genius. Like, this guy sees the play in his mind and just gets there with such speed. Now, if the Bengals were a little higher, they would probably take an offensive lineman, because at this point, a lot of the big offensive linemen have been taken off the board. So, unless they want to trade up, for one, I don't think they go there. And besides, like, Jonah Williams has really started to develop as a really good left tackle for them. Like, I could see the Bengals maybe going offensive line later on in this draft. They do have the 61st pick, so they might go there. But for now, oh god, I think they go with their linebacker core and improve that. Okay, so next up at 30, we have the Lions are on the clock again. And they are going to go quarterback. Now, are they going to go Sam Howell? Are they going to go Kenny Pickett? How about Malik Willis? No, none of those guys. They go Carson Strong. Now, this might seem a little odd. Here's my thinking. Carson Strong is good. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. The Lions' best strength at the moment is their offensive line. They have 3 guys on their offensive line in Taylor Decker, Penei Sewell, and Frank Ragnow. 3 dudes who are all playing at or near Pro Bowl levels. Like, this Lions line is quite good. So I think that they would be helped by a quarterback who can stand in the pocket, make reads, go through his progressions, and fit the ball into tight windows. And when you're going from that perspective, I think Carson Strong might just be the best quarterback in this draft class. And that's kind of a weird thing to say, but I'm bigger on Carson Strong than a lot of people are. But I really do think that he can be like a franchise quarterback for whoever ends up getting him. And I think the Lions will end up seeing that. And I think that he will challenge and ultimately beat Jared Goff in training camp. So, there you go. I think Carson Strong is the second quarterback taken off the board, and that may seem weird, but that's where I'm going. 31, it's the Packers again. When we last saw them, they got Ekwonu with the 9th overall pick, and I think here they go wide receiver. Get him a little extra help in that secondary that they never gave to Aaron Rodgers because he was too busy being a dick. So, Drake London out of USC. Like, big long arms, impressive speed. Like, he's one of those guys that people are going to be making memes out of. It's just like, fuck it, Drake's down there somewhere. Phew! So, he's a big body receiver who I think if you pair him up in this Packers offense, even with Jordan Love at quarterback, I think that's a good recipe for success. And then finally at 32 is the Chiefs, and they go Daxton Hill so they can finally replace Daniel Sorensen. I think I talked about this in my last one, but yeah, Dax Hill. Like, get him in there and get Sorensen the hell out of there. Pretty please and thank you. So now we move on to round 2. Oh, we're only halfway done. I love it. I love doing this. Now, with their first pick in the second round, I think the Jaguars go tight end. Get Trevor Lawrence another big target. Because they're going to be getting a lot of their other weapons back. They're going to be getting DJ Chark back. They're going to be getting Travis Etienne back. This is going to be a much improved Jaguars offense come next season. And I think that getting a big tight end would also help in that regard. And that's Jalen Weidermeyer. Like, there's nothing that a young quarterback loves more than a safety blanket. And I think that Weidermeyer can be that guy for him. And he can also throw some pretty good blocks. He's a big dude. He has that prototypical tight end frame. He's 6'5", 255, big strong dude who could throw blocks for James Robinson if he need to. So that to me makes the most sense. Ow. Yeah, give me Jalen Weidermeyer. Maybe I just like saying his name. Weidermeyer. Next up, 34 is the Lions again. And I'm going to do something that's been kind of a common occurrence the last few years. And that is pairing up quarterbacks with their receivers from college. And as you may recall from a few minutes ago, we just had the Lions pick up Nevada quarterback Carson Strong. And I think the Lions replicate that by drafting Romeo Doubs. Like, this dude, like, and I'm not just doing this to replicate, the Burrow to Chase thing, or Tua to Waddell, or Jalen Hurts to Devonta Smith. Like, I legitimately think that Doubs is a really strong wide receiver prospect. A little underrated. Like, a little on the, some people aren't even having Doubs in their top 2 rounds, but I think that Doubs is somebody who can really, really improve this team. Like he has really good movements, can find gaps in the zone coverage. The only problem is he's kind of known for going for style points instead of trying to make the safe catch. But if you can teach him those fundamentals and make sure that he continues to develop properly, I think that Romeo Doubs could be really, really good on this team. 35 is the New York Jets. And you remember that logic that I used for when the Jaguars drafted Jalen Weidermeyer? Weidermeyer. It's fun to say. I'm not going to stop. Well, we're doing the same thing here with the Jets. They really need themselves a tight end. Somebody who can be that security blanket for Zach Wilson and throw some blocks for Michael Carter. And that, in this case, is Dre McBride. Like, so far, Braxton Berrios has kind of been that safety blanket for the Jets, but Trey McBride has about 7 inches and 50 pounds on him. Like, I don't know if he's quite enough to be like the focal point of the Jets offense like he was back at Colorado State, McBride, but I think that he can be a very, very prominent piece of this Jets offense. Like, you get a tight end like him in there, and I think that's going to make Zach Wilson very happy. And I think so this would be 2 picks in the top 35 that they select on receivers for Zach Wilson. And I think that he will recognize that and be like, okay, you guys are really going out of your way to make sure that I have the weapons that I need to succeed. And I think that he will recognize that and be happy. Texans are on the clock again with back-to-back picks, just like they did in the first round. And if you'll recall from the first, they used those first 2 picks on 2 defensive players, Kyle Hamilton and George Karlaftis. I think here they go offense this time. And with their first one, I think they go Jahan Dotson. Right now, the Texans could be in the market for a new top receiver since Brandon Cooks is, shock of shocks, on the trade block again. What? No way. But even if Cooks stays around, I think that Dotson would make a very strong number 2 and could push for that number 1 spot. Like, he's one of those guys who can just takes the ball out of the ether, basically. He just shows up with the ball in his hands. Like, so that's good. But also, with their second pick, I think now is finally the time that they go quarterback. And I think they go Kenny Pickett. Like, he's just been sliding. He's just been sliding down the board because a lot of teams already have their quarterback situation, if not figured out, at least not. They don't want to draft an early quarterback and start a quarterback controversy. But I think with where the Jets are at, or not the Jets, with where the Texans are at right now, I think that you could bring in a guy like Kenny Pickett, if he's a second-round pick, and have him be a legitimate 1-versus-1, Davis Mills versus Kenny Pickett. One of you guys is getting the job. Figure it out. So, with that, I think that this would be a very strong move. Kenny Pickett, he's got all the tools that you need to be a good quarterback in the modern NFL. He's got size, he's got mobility, he's got arm strength. He's an experienced quarterback in the college level. Like, he's got everything you need to be a strong quarterback. Like, he does have a little bit of accuracy issues, but like, I'm not going to say if you put him in the right offense that those will go away, because this is the Texans we're talking about. Although, this is also the Texans team that did make Davis Mills look like a competitive quarterback over the last month of the season. So, maybe this is a good situation for that to happen. We will see. 38 is the Jets, and I guarantee you if Nakobe Dean is still kicking around at this point, the Jets would be super excited to land him. I think that the only reason they didn't was because I don't think the Texans are really in the market for a tight end. I could check. Yeah, not really. At least not according to this, but yeah. I don't know. I don't know why I did what I did. But Nakobe Dean is still on the board. I think the Bears would be very sad that they wouldn't be able to get their hands on him, because you know how they love linebackers. But I think that Nakobe Dean would be a great fit here. Like, Dean is a run-stopping juggernaut. Like, and this is a team that struggled against the run. So, like, it's a no-brainer to me. Nakobe Dean fits perfectly on the Jets, and I'm sure that would be a move that would make Voice very happy. You're welcome. All right, so now comes my team, the Bears. What do we need? What do you got? I think that the Bears' biggest need right now is at corner. We really haven't recovered from losing Kyle Fuller to free agency. This is a team that pulled down the 4th fewest interceptions in the league. And while there are some off-the-field problems, I think that Darion Kendrick, I think he can be the guy. Like, if it weren't for those problems, he could be a first-round pick. But he slid a little bit. He's going to land with the Bears, and I think that this will be a better scenario for both parties, excuse me. So, Darion Kendrick. I'm starting to get tired. I don't have the strength I used to. I'm getting old. Oh, I'm getting too old to do mock drafts. No. All right. Broncos are up next, and welcome to Denver, Aaron Rodgers. So this is going to be kind of interesting, because I feel like whatever team ends up getting Aaron Rodgers, I think they're going to give him at least some level of say in player acquisition, because that was part of the problem in Green Bay. Like, they just weren't giving him what they wanted. He kept wanting more help on the offense, and they instead kept going defense and, like, quarterback. So I think that the Broncos will give Aaron Rodgers a little bit more of what he wants, at least to some extent. And I think towards that, I think that one of the things that they could go for would be a new offensive tackle. And I think they find that in Nicolas Petit-Ferry. I got this wrong in the last time, but I think that old Nicky here, I think that he works a lot because like the Broncos offensive line was not great last year. It really was not. Javonte Williams apparently led the league in broken tackles. So they definitely need a little bit of help there. And I think that comes through here. There's a couple other players that they might end up selecting. I don't think they go receiver because I think that the Broncos already have quite a few. They already have a lot of their wide receiver room filled out with guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant. I think I'm missing someone, but like you get the gist. I don't think they need to go wide receiver just yet. Maybe they do that in free agency. See if they can find a big one to like put it all together. But I think that Jerry Jeudy can develop into being that number one maybe next year, especially with a guy like Rodgers throwing to him. But for right now, I think that wish number one on Aaron Rodgers's list of demands would include a new offensive tackle, and I think that Nick Mccreery would fit that pretty well. All right, so now we come to 41, and the Seahawks are on the board. And what did I tell you before? Back when they were picking at 18, I said that the list of quarterbacks that would be available at 41 would not be much worse than the quarterbacks that they could get at 18. And lo and behold, I think the quarterback that they have their eye on is still on the board, and that is, to the shock of no one, Malik Willis. Like, not only does he have the athleticism that Russell Wilson brought to the Seahawks for so many years, but he also has just a rocket launcher for an arm. Like, he could just shoot those passes deep with a smooth as butter release, hit DK Metcalf on those big, long receptions, and I think that is a combination that excites the hell out of me. Like, I want to see that combination in the league. That's going to be a lot of fun. If Willis can play like we all hope he can. Now, granted, their offensive line is still going to need a lot of help. And maybe they take that with their second round pick, or their second round pick, because I got another one coming from the Saints. But we'll see. All right, so next up is 42 to the Washington football team. The soon-to-be Admirals. And I think this is a really good landing spot for Jaquan Brisker. Like, the Washington's just been kind of lucking out in this draft that players are just falling to them. Like, they just happen to have the best quarterback in this draft class fall to them at 11, and now they get one of the best safeties in the draft just sliding down to them at 42. Like, Brisker is one of those guys who constantly plays with his head on a swivel. Like, he can direct traffic, he can read routes, he can see the quarterback's eyes. Like, he's one of those guys who can just, like, lead this Washington defense, and I think that would be a great get at 42. 43, Atlanta. I think they go pass rush again. I know that they took a pass rusher with their first first round pick, but with their first second round pick, because they got another one coming up from the Julio Jones trade. With their first second round pick, I'm confusing myself right here. I think they go edge rusher, and I think that the guy that they end up getting is Majai Sanders. That's the dude. So yeah, I think that he is the guy. He is everything that you could really want out of a pass rusher. Like, it's a big dude, got long arms, swat down passes at the line. He was the leader of a really good Cincinnati defense. Like, I think that you pair Sanders up with David Ajabo, and that is a combination that's going to scare some people. I'll tell you what. So, that I think makes the most sense to me. 44 is the Cleveland Browns again. And last time I talked about how they might need a receiver in order to make up for the loss of to make up for the trade of OBJ, or not the trade, they released OBJ, and the fact that Jarvis Landry might also be on the trade block. So I think they instead go David Bell. He's not the fastest dude in the league, but he's one of those guys who can just shimmy his way past defenders. He's very shifty. He can get around people that way. And I think that will that'll be very useful for this Browns team. 45 is the Ravens, and this is where the first running back goes off the board, and that is Kenneth Walker III from Michigan State. Now, the Ravens are in the middle of an identity crisis, I feel like, because you think of the Ravens as this big, strong, hard-nosed, run-it-down-your-throat kind of team. But the Ravens have also been relying on a parade of old-ass dudes at running back, and that is not a good setup. They had Latavius Murray, Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, all players who are 28 or older, and at running back, that is the age of death. So I think that it would be very wise to get a lot younger at the position, get some fresh blood in, basically try and find a way to improve at this spot. And I think drafting Kenneth Walker here does that. I think that Kenneth Walker is a really strong running back who loves contact and getting his hands on people and stiff arming him out of the way. I see a little bit of Derrick Henry in him, and that's probably the best thing I could ever say about a running back. He puts dudes on the ground. So, that, I think, is great news for him. Alright, next is the Vikings. Who do I go with here? Well, when in doubt, take the linebacker from Penn State. Penn State is linebacker U, and they are in need of a linebacker. Now Brandon Smith is not Micah Parsons. I will just say that. But he has the athletic tools to just maul opposing linemen and make a break for the ball carrier. And when he's on his game, he's one of the best in the country, I feel like. Also, kind of weird, he's really good at blocking field goals, so, he's got that going for him. 47 is the Colts. There's a part of me that is just screaming to take Sam Howell. The Colts should just take him as an anti-vote of confidence to be look, Carson Wentz, we can't trust you. We can't trust you as the starting quarterback. So we're going to bring in somebody. And it's your job to make sure that that person doesn't beat you for the starting gig. That's what your goal is. And I don't know if he ends up actually succeeding in that endeavor, not in Denver. But I don't think they'll end up doing that. I think that what's more likely is the Colts sign a mid-tier quarterback that's going to be on the free agent market. A guy like Teddy Bridgewater or Gardner Minshew or Mitch Trubisky. One of the guys who, he could theoretically be a safe option at quarterback. Not the flashiest signings in the world, but, somebody who could win a game if the rest of the team around him is good. So, what do the Colts end up doing to make sure that the team is good? Well, I think, honestly, they go tight end. And this might just be because I am a big fan of Isaiah Likely. But I think that he goes here and he helps this team out. Because part of, like, when Carson Wentz was doing his best work in Philly, it was largely because, not largely, but partially because of a very strong tight end that he had over there named Zach Ertz. So I think that picking up a tight end to really improve Carson Wentz's options over there, I think will go a long way. Because, like, when you're doing this, now you're at least giving him more of a chance. Or at least giving the person who will inevitably replace him more of a chance. Because right now, outside of Michael Pittman Jr., there really aren't a ton of great options at receiver for this Colts team. It's basically just Michael Pittman Jr. So, you know, get yourself a second, like a strong receiving option. I think that right now, out of the receivers that are still left on the board, I think that the best one that you're going to find is the tight end Isaiah Likely. All right, 48. Next on the board is the Chargers. And I think that the strong way to go would be to go interior offensive line. Somebody who can clear the lanes for Austin Eckler. They actually do have a pretty strong left to center of their offensive line. You got Rashawn Slater on the far left, who honestly might have had a case for Rookie of the Year as a tackle, which is stunning. Matt Feeler and Corey Linsley. Like, those three make the first, like they make up the left side of a super strong offensive line. The right side is still a bit of a question, and I think that you can start answering that question by going Zion Johnson out of Boston College. Like, I think that he makes up a really strong. He's a really strong run blocker because Boston College, their bread and butter was focused on the ground game. Like, they're not a great passing school, but they got their work done on the ground, and Zion Johnson was at the center of that. And I think that can translate up to the pros where he could be a strong right guard for them. For the Seahawks, they're up next at 49. You look at the players available, maybe they go Sean Ryan. But I think actually, this is going to be, like, I keep seeing this guy's name on the board. Where the fuck are you? Did he not commit? Hold on. Where is he? Is he listed as an edge rusher? Hold on. This is okay. We might have a developing situation here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Oh wow, he's not here. Okay, so this throws a monkey wrench into fucking everything. What happened to Henry 2020? Oh, beans. That's not good. Henry 2020 and Jordan Battle are coming back next season. Oh, this is always the problem with doing these mock drafts too early. Like, now I'm in kind of a fucky situation here. Cause now, like, I had this all written out, so now I have to kind of. Ugh, when did he announce that? 2 days ago. You bastard. Okay. You want this to be kind of interesting? All right, we'll make this interesting. What do they go from here? Well, what else do the Seahawks have problems with? Like, they got themselves a corner. They got themselves a new quarterback. The other big thing that I think they need is probably along the offensive line. Because Russell Wilson's been sacked a butt-ton of times. So I think what they do instead is go Sean Ryan out of UCLA, wherever that may be. Okay. See, originally I had Ryan falling to the Browns with their next pick. And I quite like Sean Ryan. He's already built for the position, 6'5", 320. Like, big dude, can throw blocks with the best of them. So now I got to figure out who the Browns take at 50. Okay, so let's examine. What do they need? They need edge rusher, defensive tackle, wide receiver, and interior line. Okay. What have I given them so far? I gave them David Bell and Trayvon Walker. So they've gotten an edge rusher and a wide receiver. Are there any... There are some offensive linemen available. Abraham Lucas, Ed Ingram, Lasita Smith. I think I have all those guys already going off the board. I don't want to just, like, pick some. Hey, you know. I haven't had anybody... I don't think I have any other centers on the board, so this could be something. Alec Lindstrom. See, the Browns right now, their situation is they already have a starting offensive line that is among the best in the game. You know, Jedrick Willis, Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin. Like, when all five are healthy, that is a monster of an offensive line. But if they get hurt, they suddenly start falling off in chunks. So I think, like, maybe going second round is a little bit early to be going for, you know, offensive line depth. But you've already gotten, like, they already drafted a wide receiver. They already drafted a pass rusher. They could go interior line, but, like, I don't think they need to do that. I think that the better play would be to find a good offensive lineman. And center seems to be a really big... Well, I don't know. Let's go Lasita Smith. I already have him going on in my draft, but, like, we can move stuff around because it's what we do here. We adapt, we improvise, and we overcome. So Lasita Smith is now going number 50 to the Browns. All right, we'll come back to that. Next up at 51. We have another offensive lineman coming off the board, but this one I think is going to be a lot more fun. At least as fun as offensive linemen get in this draft. We're going Bernard Ryman. Now, this dude's got a story. So, this dude is an Austrian immigrant who played as a wide receiver and then transitioned into a tight end before eventually transitioning into a offensive tackle at Central Michigan. Can you imagine this dude at 6'7", 305? I get that he probably bulked up, but just imagine a 6'5", wait, that was right? 6'5", or 6'7", 305. Imagine that dude playing receiver. And that is what I want to see, because this dude is a trick play waiting to happen, okay? Like, you put him in as a pass-eligible tight end, and just fireworks are going to go. Like, maybe he stays in as a, or maybe it's an actual running play, and he's just in as a sixth lineman to throw some blocks, which he can do very well. Or he could run out and make a couple touchdown catches. Like, I think that if he goes to a team that really likes to run the ball like the Eagles do, I think that this guy could not only be an effective actual blocker, but could pull down like 3 touchdowns a season. Like, just remember I said that about Bernard Ryman. Just remember that. All right, so next up at 52 is the Steelers, except no, it's not. This is what I was talking about earlier. They make a trade here with the San Francisco 49ers, and they, basically it's a 1-for-1 trade. The 49ers receive this pick, and the Steelers receive Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I feel like if the 49ers make an actually pretty... if they make an actually deep run into the playoffs, Garoppolo might accidentally play himself into being worth a first-round pick, but I don't know. We'll see. In any case, right now, in this story, or in this timeline, the Steelers have their quarterback of the future, at least of the near future in Garoppolo. Maybe he does work out for them, maybe he doesn't, but well, that is a question for the future. But for now, the 49ers have this pick, and they go pass rusher with Drake Jackson. So these guys, they need somebody who can come off the edge and get to the quarterback, because almost all of their sacks this season came from people lined up on the defensive line. Whereas Drake Jackson, even though he's listed as a defensive end in some places, he's just as comfortable lining up as an outside linebacker. So I think you put him on the outside, and just let him be on the other side of whatever pass rush that Nick Bosa is doing. And I think that works out really, really well for you. All right. Patriots are on the clock next at 53, and I think here, this is where they start addressing their kind of shaky defense from this game. Like we saw in the games that they played against the Bills, they got their faces rocked, and I think that they work on improving their run game, because the run game was the unsung hero for that Bills team. Like Devin Singletary and what's the name? Josh Allen really came through for them and helped make this Bills team just that much stronger. So I think that they go Perry and Winfrey in order to patch up that somewhat suspect Patriots defense. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but, he's got enough in tools that a guy like Bill Belichick, he could definitely get a lot out of him. '54 is the Raiders. And I think that it would be a good idea to go offensive line here. This is a Raiders. The Raiders' offensive line wasn't all that great last year. They gave up a lot, they didn't give up a ton of sacks, at least not in terms of the most. They only gave up 40 sacks, which was middle of the pack, trending towards the bottom third, but not the worst. But their run blocking was particularly not so great. So I think that they go Ed Ingram here out of LSU. So the LSU offense, they've had their struggles. This year, it wasn't all peaches and cream, but Ed Ingram has been a high point for them. He's got his own share of off the field issues, but I think that so obviously send him to the Raiders. But if not for those, I feel like he would be a fringe first round pick. But I think he falls here to the Raiders at 54, and I think that's a great spot for him. I think that he can be a starter for them pretty quickly. All right, next up at 55. Got the Cardinals back on the clock. And I think for this one, I think they go running back here. So the Cardinals... So last year they took a shot, or this year they took a shot on James Conner. And he's been really good for them, at least in terms of being a goal line threat. Like, he's scored 15 touchdowns for them, won a trip to Hawaii. He did really good this year, but he's more of a short yardage guy. And on top of that, he's on a 1-year deal, so he might be gone in a year, or he might be gone next year. But even if he's still there, I think that Connor works best as a complementary piece. Like, I don't think he should be the main guy of the Cardinals offense. So I think that they'd be wise to draft themselves a running back, maybe specifically a smaller guy, somebody who can be the lightning to James Conner's thunder. And I think that guy is Kyren Williams out of Notre Dame. Like, he can find holes to break off big runs. He's really good at, like, juking and getting around players. And surprisingly enough, this is kind of a neat thing, but he's a really good blocker, especially for a guy his size. Like, considering that he's playing in the division that has, like, Max Crosby and Nick Bosa, that's huge, because that means that you can, like, keep him in there on passing downs and have him be, like, the last line of defense. You know, the guy who, the running back who stands in the pocket with the quarterback and watches his back, you know, that kind of thing. So I think Kyren Williams there, I think he could be a steal for them. Next up is the Dallas Cowboys at 56. So I like Lewis Cine in this range. Like, I like Lewis Cine in general. He gives me Bob Sanders vibes, and that's like the best thing you can say about a safety. Like, he was already on the smaller side of things coming out of like when he was like early in his college career, and then he put on 15 more pounds. Like, dude is a straight up Mack truck now at 200 pounds. Like, the only problem with that is that when you're like that, when you have a reputation for being like a vicious tackler at that size, it opens you up to injuries. So Cine needs to be a little bit careful, and that's part of the reason why I had him sliding down here, because the way he plays, he's just gonna hurt himself like that. But I think that with a little bit of good coaching, I think that Cine could be a big guy, or at least metaphorically big. All right, 57 is the 49ers. I have Kyler Gordon going in this range. Corner out of Washington. This is another player that I like a whole lot, because the Niners, their secondary wasn't great last season. They didn't even get 10 interceptions last year, which there was only 7 teams in the league who weren't able to get double digit sacks. And Gordon he's just a really interesting athlete to me. Like, he's got really good acceleration and agility, so he can basically bait the quarterback into making bad decisions. But he also has a background in various other athletics, let's go with. Like, he has experience in kung fu, dance, and ballet, which means that he's a very flexible player. And that kind of thing will give you really good footwork and hip rotation, because you're like in those arts, either martial or physical, you're moving around a whole lot. You're moving your body, contorting, trying to move around into the right positions. I know that's everything, but you know what I mean. Like, those things require great body control, and those are attributes that have bled their way into Kyler Gordon's game. I think that he can be a very strong corner. Like, there's a few things that, you know, he could be doing better, but like I think Gordon, at least in this range, I think works out great. 58 is the Bills. I think they go running back here because like Devin Singletary is starting to come along, but I still don't think that he is, like, he doesn't need to be the bell cow. You know what I mean? He doesn't need to be the only one involved in your running game. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M. Like, basically the Bills have been looking for that elite running back, the one who actually can be that bell cow, since probably Willis McGahee was still in town. Like, and the Bills, they just need to start getting more playmakers. Like, they need to start getting more people to help out this offense, because, like, yeah, they've been kicking the crap out of the Patriots the last few times they've been playing, but that hasn't always been the case. There have been games like say the one against the Jaguars where the offense just shuts down and like looks completely just ineffectual. So I think they need to start stocking up on playmakers, people who can people who can make it so that Josh Allen doesn't have to do everything for this team. So I think Isaiah Spiller works great for that. 59, the Falcons. This is where I would have Sam Howell finally go off the board, because the Falcons, they've got their problems. They've got really, really big problems. Oddly enough, they don't have a ton of problems, I don't feel like, but the problems they do have are really big, glowing, and flashing red. Like, they need to make some adjustments. I am one of those people who actually thinks that Matt Ryan, he's still got a few years left in the tank. It's just that he's been surrounded by bad teams in Atlanta, and they need to improve everyone around Matt Ryan. That being said, they do still need to address the future. They do still have issues with at the quarterback position. You know, how old's Matt Ryan? I want to say he's in his mid-30s already. I'm looking it up right now. Matt Ryan age. He is 36. Wow. He's 2 years younger than Aaron Rodgers. That doesn't feel right. But yeah, Matt Ryan, he's getting up there. And he's had some games where he has straight up looked like he is not the same guy that he was when he was an MVP, obviously. But yeah, I think that Sam Howell, like, if you can get him in this range, because like ordinarily, if a quarterback was still on the board, like, if a quarterback was like a little bit lower on this board and he was available, you might not take him, but he's just been there for like several picks, and it just feels like he keeps falling and falling and falling, and here he is, just there at 59. Like who's backing him up right now? Who's backing him up in Atlanta? Atlanta Falcons depth chart. Here we go. From their website, their backup quarterback it's Josh Rosen. Oh no! Yeah, definitely improve on that. Yeah, so Sam Howell, I think, would be a great improvement over there. Like, yeah, let me pull my thing back up. He's really good at reading defenses. His throws don't have a ton of like velocity on him. He's not a deep ball threat, but he's got great precision in the short to intermediate range. So I think that would be very helpful. And I think that learning from a guy like Matt Ryan, I think that is a great mentor for a young quarterback. I feel like Matt Ryan has one of the sharpest minds in the business. Like I just feel like he is a quarterback who could really, who could help a younger guy like Howell really take that next step. 60 is the Buccaneers. We're almost done here. I think wide receiver would be the option for them because, yeah, you still got Mike Evans, and he's good, but he had a bit of a down season. Chris Godwin just tore his ACL, and I think this was the last year of his contract, so he might be a franchise tag candidate. Antonio Brown, even Gronkowski is getting older. Like, there's a lot of question marks in the Buccaneers receiving game, and I think they'd be wise to go for a receiver like Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama. Like, strong route runner, like the kind of receiver that I feel like Tom Brady would love. Smart guy, great on the route tree, can be wherever Brady is expecting him to be. 61 is the Bengals. So this is where I originally had Letitia Smith, or Lacita Smith, but he's not there anymore. So let's see who's available. Let's look around. Their needs are offensive line, or offensive tackle, safety, linebacker, tight end, and guard. I could go safety. I could see it because this. I remember in the Kansas City game that the Bengals did have a knack for kind of giving up a lot of big plays. Who have I already given them? I think it was just that one pick, and that was Devin Lloyd. Okay. Yeah. What about an offensive line? Could go Abraham Lucas. Like, I was talking about like how, yeah, I think I am gonna go Abraham Lucas because I was talking about how with the first round, excuse me, with the first round the Bengals kind of missed out on a lot of the big offensive linemen, but I think that here in the second there's still some good ones. You've got Abraham Lucas, you got Alec Lindstrom we were looking at earlier. Daniel Falale, I've seen a lot of people very high on him. I haven't taken a look at him on the tape yet, but I've heard very good things about him. So I think now would be a good time. Rasheed Walker, like a lot of the ones on this board are lower than I would take, or I would think. I'd probably have some of these guys higher on my big board if I were to make one. But yeah, Abraham Lucas. Let's take a look at him. This time last year, rising star, potential day 2 pick with upside even further up the board. That makes sense here. Yeah, I don't want to open up the full report on that because that's going to open up a new tab. But I think we're just going to go with Abraham Lucas going to Cincinnati. There we go. Took a second, but it went. All right. 62 is the Broncos. They're back on the clock again. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to force them to like make moves that they don't want to make. But I think that a smart play here would be to go Christian Harris. Linebacker out of Bama. He's a little bit raw. He was actually a converted safety coming out of high school. But like in the couple years that he's played at linebacker, he has played at an extremely high level. This is actually the selection that the Broncos got in the Von Miller trade, one of 2 of them at least, and like that would be a very nice fit right there, just to stick Christian Harris in there as the guy who might be your next Von Miller. Who knows? So Christian Harris at 62 to the Broncos. I like that move. 63 is the Packers. So right now the Smiths are on the trade block right now, from what I've heard. Both Za'Darius and Preston. So the Packers might start looking at other pass rushers. The debate was between Cameron Thomas and Sam Williams. I just haven't looked up enough information on Cameron Thomas yet to know for sure. So for now, I'm going to go with Sam Williams, but just know that the next time I do a mock, I might go looking at Thomas to see if he's worth it, because he wasn't here when I was doing this the last time. Just on my own. So, Sam Williams, big guy, fast guy. He's one of those guys who really lights up the measurables. It might take him a second to get up to pro level speed because his tools are a little raw. Is raw, but I think that he can step up and maybe make something of himself there. And finally, at 64, the last pick of the first round. Who do we go with? There's actually quite a few wide receivers that I do quite like in this range. You got George Pickens, John Mechie III, Wan'Dale Robinson. Going a little farther, I remember Sky Moore could really sneak up on some people. But I think I'm going to go with Justin Ross out of Clemson. Whoa. Hello. I wasn't expecting that to happen, but we will just, yeah, there we go. But yeah, so earlier in the season, whenever Pat Mahomes was going through his struggles, they showed some clips of him trying throwing interceptions, and a lot of them bounced off his receiver's hands. And it's just like, come on. Really? That's at least not all of Pat's fault. So I feel like something that would really help this Chiefs offense is if they could improve at wide receiver. And you get a guy like Justin Ross. He's one of those guys who is a big red zone threat. Like, he's a big, tall guy, sure-handed, makes contested catches. Like, you already have Tyreek Hill as, your number one guy. He's the speedster, Justin Ross is, let me put it this way. Tyreek Hill is, fuck it, Tyreek's down there somewhere. Justin Ross is more like, fuck it, Ross will beat the cover. Or Ross will beat his corner in one way or another. So that's my thinking there. And that is my first 2-round mock draft. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to make another one of these probably after the Super Bowl, I think. Because then the order will be all set finally. So, with that, thank you all very much for watching all the way to the end. It's been nearly 2 hours. My throat is dying. Thank you, and good night.